fourth meeting of the 14th session of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues is called to order. Distinguished members of the Forum, distinguished observers, friends, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon we shall consider Agenda Item 4, half-day discussion on the Pacific region. We will begin with the panel discussion, after which we will begin listening to the speakers that are inscribed on the list under Item 4. I would like to extend a warm welcome to the distinguished members of the panel, namely Ms. Valmain Toki, expert member of the Permanent Forum from New Zealand, His Excellency Ambassador Odo Tevi, Permanent Representative of Vanuatu, Ms. Hai Yuen Tuolima, Indigenous Fellow of the World Intellectual Property Organisation, and Ms. Avia Koizen, who will speak on behalf of the Pacific Caucus. I will now give the floor to the members of the panel. In order to make the best use of the time available to us, I invite the panel members to limit their statements to not more than 7 minutes. We will first have a statement by Ms. Valmain Toki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora rana, bulavanaka, talofalafa, kia ora koutou, Indigenous brothers and sisters, member states and UN agencies. The Pacific is a diverse and rich area with its own set of challenges, and I think it's appropriate that after yesterday's inclement weather we now have some Pacific sunshine for our panel this afternoon. I would like to speak briefly to 4 separate but related issues that we face as Pacific peoples. The last issue I'd like to briefly speak on is self-determination. When most states adopted the Declaration in 2007, Australia and New Zealand were 2 of the 4 dissenting states. Among the 11 overall abstentions was a Pacific nation, Samoa. I'm pleased to say that these positions have now all changed. Australia, New Zealand and Samoa have all declared their support for the declaration. Among the 34 non-voting states, 10, so a large percentage of those, were Pacific nations: Fiji, Kiribati, the Marshall Islands, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu and Vanuatu. Owing to the pervasive and widespread experience of colonisation throughout the Pacific, this is relatively a high rate of non-adoption of the Declaration, and I think that's arguably reflective of that prevalent colonist position. In light of this, I'd like to draw your attention to some comments made by Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon during the 2013 substantive session of the Special Committee on Decolonization. He called on that body to devise fresh and creative approaches in mobilising the political will needed to eradicate colonisation, saying it had no place in the modern world. There are 17 non-self-governing territories currently listed for active consideration by the Special Committee on Decolonisation. 5 of these are located in the Pacific: American Samoa, Guam, New Caledonia, Tokelau and the French Polynesia. Pacific islands not on the list but seeking consideration include Hawaii. There are also independence movements in West Papua, a province in Indonesia. Hawaii was previously featured on the list but removed after a referendum in 1959. And just reiterating Secretary Ban Ki-moon's words, fresh and creative approaches in mobilising that political will is needed. He further goes on to say it's time for a new kind of fully inclusive dialogue about decolonisation. We no longer have the luxury of indulging in rhetoric and rituals. Secretary-General further stated it's time for a new kind of fully inclusive dialogue about decolonisation. And of course, again, we no longer have that luxury of indulging in rhetoric and rituals. And just echoing the words of Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon on the need to adopt those fresh and creative approaches to attacking the issue about decolonisation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank Valmain Toki for her statement. I now give the floor to the West Papua Interest Association, Ronald Waromi.
Distinguished Madam Chairperson of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and members, Indigenous brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for giving us, the West Papua Indigenous people, the opportunity for presenting our statement in the 14th session of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. It is over 52 years since 1963, West Papua joined with Indonesia through the dishonest result of the Act of Free Choice in 1969. Our human rights and fundamental freedom in West Papua have never been fully guaranteed. This political process is still being questioned by West Papua indigenous people and have called for independence. We West Papua indigenous people continue to suffer discrimination, marginalization, extreme poverty, the conflict and human rights abuses, our race and way of life under the threat of extinction. In the era of the implementation of the Special Autonomy Law number 21 of the year 2001, amidst various humanitarian problems and not shown any significant change, however, indigenous people of West Papua rejected the acceleration of development in Papua and West Papua province and the special autonomy and continue call for self-determination and independence. Human rights violations in West Papua continue to increase in several places in West Papua, such as in Serui, Paniai, and in Tembagapura, the area of PT Freeport Indonesia Gold and Copper Mining Company in Timika, which recently about 116 indigenous community has been taken handcuffed by Indonesian police to Timika police station, which still in trauma situation. As we all know, the UN Secretary General has been paying attention to the fate of the convict execution known as the Bali 9, just got to be a threat in execution, but not in execution. But how about too many indigenous people of West Papua and human rights defenders in West Papua which have been killed? The human rights violation which continue to occur among indigenous West Papuan, which was highlighted in the report of Human Rights Council Working Group on Universal Periodic Review 13th session, and to be known by the international community. Indigenous people of West Papua face human rights violation because of their demand for self-determination and independence, but human rights violation in West Papua has been forgotten. Therefore, through this 14th session of the UNPFII, we call upon Special Rapporteur on the Right of Indigenous People to conduct country visit to Indonesia, West Papua, to see from the very closely the situation of indigenous people of West Papua near and around the Tembagapura area of PT Freeport Gold and Copper Mining Company in Timika, West Papua. We call upon United Nations to follow up the report of the study on decolonization in the Pacific by Ms. Valmain Toki. We West Papua indigenous people call upon the United Nations for exercising the referendum on self-determination to determine our political status according to the provision contained in the Charter of the United Nations, Article 1 of the ICCPR, ISAC, and the Article 3 of the UN Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People, which state that all people and indigenous people have the right to self-determination. I thank you for your attention.
I'd like to thank Ronald Waromi for his statement and again express my gratitude for you staying under the time limit. We appreciate that.